Hello everybody and welcome to another modification video with the Frog Brothers Podcast. I am your co-host Justin, and with me is my esteemed colleague Alec. Alec, how are you doing?
Hello dearies!
So we noticed that you guys liked the last video, so that was only part one of the modifications. So you'll see a few things on here that we've done. So kind of going to start by showing you a breakdown of what I've done so far. So I painted my cap to match the end. Obviously the other cap's going on a loom hose, and we're going to show an attachment on that here in a little bit. So after I drilled the holes out, I needed to fill them back up after I did that and painted everything. And I did some spot painting. So what I used was Art Minds modeling foam. This is basically a cosplay style foam that will dry out and you can sand down and work on it, but for me it was an easy way to fill these holes up pretty evenly and kind of fill them back in, and it'll be real easy to take out if I need to get back inside the wand again. The other thing you'll notice is that I removed the attachment here that came on it. So when we upgraded to the Dixie cup bracket, and I didn't need to do any modifications to that bracket, the screw holes fit and lined up perfect for it. The only thing is they're not recessed like they are in this one, but if you look at the comparison to the movie model, they're actually closer to this in size. So there has been a lot of talk that they used Dixie cup bracket holders in the movie, so only time will tell when we see that. That's pretty awesome there. And then on the wand grip, I used some Kiwi Brun shoe polish on the wand handle. That turned out pretty well. It's a little bit darker. I think I did 2 or 3 coats on there, and it gives you a nice shiny wax look to it, which kind of makes it feel more like wood just at a glance. I know a lot of people are replacing that, but it even looks good covering on your the foam here, because I filled that foam hole in, so turned out nice. And then I also did some aging with some silver paint on top of that, so I'll show you the brand of paint I used for that as well. Did the whole wand here, so kind of made those look messy. And so I used this Plaid FX Armor Metallic paint. So some of these things came from Michael's. You can get some of that stuff at Hobby Lobby, some of that stuff at Joann's, whatever kind of hobby store you have nearby. I bought those for other projects, just tested them out on this. I know a lot of people love using paint pins, silver paint pins for props and prop making, so... But this is the current state of it. Now I will tell you one other thing I've noticed is this button is red here. If you are trying to be screen accurate to Afterlife, the Afterlife prop has a black button here. That'd be pretty easy to paint over and touch up without replacing that. So I probably will change that color eventually. I'm not 100% done with this, just making progress. Now I also upgraded my stand. So I will paint the GB logo there, so I still haven't picked up paint for that. A few other things I did though. I did use some hot glue and I filled the tubes up completely. And I also threw some scrap metals and things in there to kind of give it a little bit more weight. And I filled in the bottom as well. Now this isn't super heavy, but it just gives it a little bit more reliability on the stand if you're going to display it. The only thing I would say is if you are going to display one and you're not going to use it ever, leave your general V-hook on there, because this V-hook's a little bit smaller on the outside and doesn't quite fit this as well, so you will have to be mindful of where you're placing that on the wand. So it needs to go back a little further on there. And for the people that are complaining about this stand, don't put it in there backwards. If you try to angle your wand up, that's not how this is designed to be made.
Gonna have a bad time.
You're gonna have a bad time, and you're gonna be like, well, that's a cheap stand. Well, to be honest with you, the stand is just kind of a bonus.
Yeah.
So... but it all fires up and works. One thing that I did abandon after I've seen too many people mess up their wand with was the barrel twist on it. To be honest with you, this is going to be on my Spirit pack, my Anovos full-size pack I have built. I have the one twist on there, and I have the barrel tip that extends and comes back in and out. So to me, this is kind of a secondary one. It's not the primary, so I'm not losing any sleep over that. So she all fires up. Works great. I did have somebody ask me if I was going to change this button to change modes, like if you've got the sponge face kit, maybe from GB Fans or just from his eBay shop. I'm just going to leave that as is. I think that orange button's fine for that purpose. So. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to replace the fake tape that was included on the wand. My friend Ricky in the Midland Empire Ghostbusters had some extra wand grips that he had 3D printed, hence the saw here. I know there's a lot of people making these custom size perfectly fit already. I've got this for free from a friend, so I'm not going to spend any money that I don't need to spend. So I'm going to flip this bad boy over, and obviously this is kind of thick. I'm not sure everyone cuts it off, but there's nothing underneath this. So, and if anything, I can always touch it up. And if anyone was curious on what paint I used the Rust-Oleum flat black. That's what I like. I've done all my Ghostbusters props in flat black. I know a lot of people like satin or glossy. I hate that. I think it causes too much reflections on photos when people are taking photos of your props, or if you're in photos with your props. So I just like the flat black look. It's less reflective and holds up better over time. It doesn't have fingerprints or anything like that on it. So now, Crocodile Dundee would not call this a knife, but that's a knife. Do the same thing. So anytime you're doing something like that, they say cut away from your body.
That's a fork, mate.
You don't want to cut right through all the way down on your first cut. I find people that make cuts too fast are more likely to spend a trip to the ER if they've never done this kind of thing. So, an important safety tip though, if you were to cut through your finger, now I don't drink cow's milk as I like to call it, but if you do and you cut off an appendage or part of an appendage, you can throw that into some cow's milk and they can likely reattach that at the emergency room. So, fun little safety tip for you there. Egon's all about safety tips, and you know, this is his wand. Now I have already ordered some gaff tape to replace this with, so I'm going to age that up. I've got some military green looking spray paint, and I'm not trying to damage this thing completely. In the event that I want to throw it back on there, there is some like stuff you could do to fill this back in. Alec is over here watching, hoping that I cut myself while telling you guys about safety.
I was just thinking how lucky I am that I don't have my genitalia out inches away from that blade. Because that would suck, you know, if you slipped.
Well, lucky for you, this isn't a circumcision video.
No, it's not. But
so if you like the bizarre style of humor we have, ooh, little cut there, but I'll fix that.
This is exactly how my circumcision went.
It was botched?
Exactly. The guy was like, alright, get the blade out. Come on,
right.
This isn't working.
So, prime example on here, you can clearly tell where like it's plastic compared to my painting on there. So, but you keep that intact and you can reuse it if you want to. I know a lot of people actually reused this or even possibly sculpted this for their 3D print. You know, if you do measurements on that, you can see. So I will kind of use that as a guide as I cut down my 3D print here. So basically what I'm going to do is line up on here and kind of match that in there to fill it in where I want it to. So kind of be in the middle, and I probably will need the Dremel to fill in some of this. And for anyone else that was wondering, there is a full grip on here, so stand by. Alright, so I went and got my fancy Harbor Freight special screwdriver, because why not? You can find some good stuff in there for a good price. My good screwdrivers out in the garage, and I just reorganized my tools so I didn't feel like getting it out of there. So there is one more spot I'll have to drill out. So as you can see, I drilled out some of that nonsense. Oh, cheap screw.
More drilling.
So there's more drilling here at the bottom, so we'll be back after that. I've shown you how to drill that out, and we'll be back. Alright, so I just drilled those out, and you will see that some of those may come out easier than others. They are basically a little plastic cap in there that the is covered in, so they kind of plug in there. That's how both of those were, so thread these other screws out real quick. Isn't this fun and exciting? So hey kids, so while we're talking to you here, and just to make this a little less monotonous, we are covering Ernest Scared Stupid on the podcast this week. Anybody like Ernest P. Worrell? Know what I mean, Vern? I blame our dad and our mom for us liking Ernest P. Worrell. Little story here, just enough of a story to get you going. But when I was a kid, I saw this movie in theaters, and I got a little scared. Remember having to like get close to my mom, and it was kind of embarrassing because I was like, I shouldn't be scared of this, should I? But you know, things happen. So there's a little glue on here, but not for the faint of heart. But as you can see, that's a lot easier than doing just part of a grip if you want consistency. So the screw holes are here, here, and here. And as I think about prepping this already and doing this work, I'm going to match the hole placement, thread that hole down in so it'll seat about approximately the same height. You can see that the grips my friend Ricky made, are pretty close. Ricky's also got a really badass Geiger meter that he's made, and I'm going to be getting some of those from him, or getting mine from him here soon. I should be getting that in November. So that's two parts there. This piece here. So just remember, if you haven't watched any of the drilling videos, just watch the first part of this. That'll kind of cover all that. I do have a circular file that I will put in there just to clean up the ends of this, and I will also use that to trim this down and screw this in there and basically replicate the exact same thing. Just going to be a lot easier with my own tape on there. And I ordered 1 inch wide strip of gaff tape. I've seen a lot of people say they like hockey tape for like your stick grip because it can get in the groove. So if I don't like the gaff tape, I will wind up going to the sports store, get some gaff tape there. So, or hockey tape, I should say. Sorry, sound like a drunken person. So that's what we've got going on right now. So we've got the grip cut off, and if you do it pretty smooth, you can always throw it back on there if you want. That basically sits pretty snug in here. So you can see when you look at their design for that, I totally see why they did that instead of making a full grip underneath there. But at the same time, it just shows me how easy it would be for Hasbro to release a classic wand that's more reminiscent of the original movies if they wanted to. Easy upgrade on the grip there. And if you're wanting to go classic style, just get a full-size grip for the rear, take this whole piece off and make it fit that instead of just doing that little gap in there. Gap in there is going to be okay, but overall I would rather have one solid piece for my grip than to have something kind of filled in there in the middle. And then when I go to fill that later, I will use some of this cosplay foam to kind of fill in any gaps I have so it's smooth, and then I'll sand that out, and then I will repaint that. Originally I was on the fence about painting and replacing the tape on here, but after looking at the movie used prop, I decided this one I want to be as close as possible, so I'm going to make it as close as possible. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we've moved from my wand to Alec's wand, and here is the back plug, and he's upgraded to a 3/4 inch tube. Now this 3/4 inch tube is just a little bit too small to fit right in there, right, without threading. So what I'm going to do, and you wonder why I'm wearing gloves, these are mechanics gloves so they can handle a little bit of heat. Got my Milwaukee heat tool here. Not a traditional heat gun, some of them are actually shaped like a gun, but warm this thing up a little bit. Now this gets to 650 degrees, so typically I try not to aim the heat gun at my own hands. Because if you've ever burned yourself or touched something that's extremely hot, like one of these, it sucks. Could land you in the ER pretty quick. Don't burn yourself on the end of the wand there. Now that's warm most of the way on there. But as you can see, that should thread on, so I'll probably need to reheat this a little bit and push it on the rest of the way, but we're in most of the way. Nice thing about that with the heat gun is that this should not twist out. Those ridges are on there to hold in within, and that'll make it so it actually has some twist and rotation when it's on there. So you can easily remaneuver your wand to hang it on the pack or as you're using it. And Alec just bought this wand. It's super flexible. That's really important when you're doing anything with the Proton wand. Just makes life so much easier. So I'll be right back in a second after I fight getting this thing on the rest of the way. No one wants to watch a man struggle. Alright, so I got that on there all the way now. You'll notice a slight gap, but this top ridge is connected to the top ridge on the connector there. And that just spins in there, and that's pretty tight. There's 3 or 4 grooves, so it would take a pretty good amount of force to just pull that thing off. Yet it's going to allow you to rotate and twist this perfectly. Since it's not a thread on, it's actually just different demarc points on there. That's pretty awesome. So 3/4 inch tubing will fit on there. If you don't have a heat gun, you might have to fight it a little bit. That heat gun just makes it a little bit more pliable to do. And again, anytime you're working with something hot like that or sharp, just make sure you're using your PPE and being safe. We love horror movies, but we don't like making real life horror movies, so we'll try not to burn anyone or anyone's house down today. So that's what we've got on this. Alright, so you might wonder how we've tripled our number of wands here. That's just how we operate and live our best life. So this wand is brand new out of the box. This is one I've got a second one for myself. I'm keeping it as is at the moment, but you can see how extreme some of the paint is. These are all definitely unique, right? Someone clearly just went a little crazy with the silver paint on this one. No upgrades on this one, so clearly static button there. It's definitely got that plastic color. It's going to take all your fingerprints on there. So one thing that I did when I painted off my my wood handle here on mine was obviously I did it all black, that matte black paint I used. Then I did a little bit of a silver touch-up underneath it, and then I touched it up with some black on top, just so it looks like if you replaced that grip, there would have been a fair amount of paint that it would have actually worn off or whatever when you made that replacement. So just kind of made it so you can subtly see some of the paint underneath that. So on my brother's wand, Alec's wand right here, he's done a little bit more severe weathering on his. He did mask his off and use the paint as well, the matte paint. Used the same silver I did. His pack, he's got a lot of silver showing through just so it looks like it's just been beat to hell and back, which I like. We also upgraded him to a better looking clipboard. This clipboard actually came with my Novos kit. The sticker, you can actually see that is on there, but that, if you compare side by side, this just looks way better at a glance. So it looks pretty close to what's in the movie. And it looks good enough. I mean, we could replace the sticker on there because that's resin cast with an aluminum cap glued on. Obviously that's an aluminum cap glued on, but obviously the scale and the size isn't right and the sticker is too small. So these two wands are works in progress. We're going to do a few other things to his as well. Probably going to get the real button on there. So you can just kind of see the variety we have here going, right? So if you look here, how clean everything is on these buttons. I painted mine silver completely and then did some paint over so they just looks like it's worn and torn. And then Alec just did some touch-ups there as well. Now he masked his off, did a pretty good job. He covered up a little bit more paint in a few spots. And then he's also upgraded to the Dixie Cup bracket. The other thing I will say is if you are painting, which we found out the hard way and just weren't paying super close attention, is this piece here is all rubber, and if you spray paint that, that paint is not going to cure on there correctly, so it's going to be sticky and it's going to spread paint around. So we're going to wipe that off of his here in just a little bit with a paper towel. It should come off all the way. If it doesn't, we're going to take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and help get that paint off of there. That should be fine. And I believe he's only done one coat of the shoe polish on there, so his looks a little bit lighter. I did a couple of coats on mine, but as you're making these all unique and a little different, I think it's pretty cool to have them that way. So kind of see those there. So if you look, that's a couple coats, that's one coat, and then obviously this is just how it comes out of the factory. So a couple of those here. So we'll get a third video up once I get the grips going, but that's video number 2. So we hope you're having fun modding your Spengler wand with the Frog Brothers podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and please subscribe and listen anywhere you get podcasts. We talk pop culture, we talk
horror movies,
we talk
comics,
we talk
penises, sometimes.
Sometimes that comes up, but that's just weird. Other cool stuff. We got toys. Besides these toys, we got the Tully's Terrible Night. Little reveal here. This came in for me the other day. So they got that slip on top, which you know, obviously they had this kind of a slip on the Spengler wand. Pretty cool, but definitely love how this stuff is. So we will catch you guys on episode 3 of Modding the Spengler wand. Take care now.